Hello, everyone, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to Black Mental Health Matters. Welcome to yet another episode. Today's episode is so different from the others we've been having. Today we are having a group of professional journalists, if I may say, health journalists who have written all these articles about mental health, and today they are here to take us through about what they have been writing about, what they hope to write about, what they think is lacking, what should be added in, so that we can improve the mental health status in Uganda, in Africa as a region, and in the whole world. We don't know what they're going to say, and maybe whatever they say is going to change the world all over. Apparently, right now, I'm supposed to be having four guests, but there are a few issues here and there. Some guests are still trying to connect in. I have Florence on set, I have Walt on set, so we are going to get started as the others join us later. So I want to give my guests a chance to introduce themselves so you get to know them better, and then we can proceed with the conversation. So Florence, I want to start with you. A brief introduction about yourself and say something about mental health in regards to your coverage.
Yes, hi everyone. It's so wonderful to be here. I am Florence Naluyimba Blondell, born and bred Ugandan, but right now I'm living in the US of A, just left the United Kingdom. So I'm just globetrotting around. But yes, I used to be a health journalist, rather a journalist in Uganda, broadcast journalist covering health issues, environmental issues, population and development, sexual and reproductive health. You know me tell anything that's related to health and environment. And I really loved doing that job so much because I got to listen to many Ugandan stories. I got to go across the country, the remotest of areas, the ones, not car can trade, even the so-called, I don't know, big tired cars. So it was quite an interesting time. And in my time, right now at the moment, of course, I'm working with a charity organization, which is based in the United Kingdom, but I'm here in the US, where we cover population and development-related issues, sexual and reproductive health, fighting for women's rights. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment. But of course, once you're a journalist, you're forever a journalist. And sometimes some people spot you on TV and say, "Are you back at NTV?" But yes, when I get an interesting story, I'm definitely going to find it and send it back home. Because, like I said, as a journal, more is a journal. So that's me in a nutshell. And of course, with journalism, sorry, should I wait for everyone else to introduce themselves before we discuss?
No, you can proceed. You can proceed.
Yeah. So my history, like I said, I cover everything to really health, and mental health is really one of them. Of course, in a country like Uganda, people don't take mental health that seriously, and someone would wonder, what the hell? It's not something we talk so much about. But I tried to really cover it because I even remember actually when I was leaving for my master's in London, I had started serializing stories on mental health because I was running this health focused show, a segmented show, which ran every month actually. So I decided, why not do a series of mental health stories? Obviously, in the past, I was covering some depression here and there. I do bipolar, I do a PCR on that. I go, talk to, there's a good doctor, by the way, was at Butabika, may God rest his soul. I just heard that he died, a great mental health person, was it Dr. Chigozi? So I did cover quite a number of stories, and I started serializing them because I felt like I have the opportunity to show what's happening in my country. I have the opportunity to tell Ugandans that we are having a crisis, that mental health is not just a white problem, but it's also a black problem. It's a Ugandan problem. It's not a developed country problem. It's ours. It's here with us. So I started serializing some stories. I was, getting in touch with people at Butabika. I go even see the activities that people with mental health, are doing out there. So that was my main mission. And I must say, covering mental health was starting to grow in the country. But obviously, a lot more needs to be done. You need journalists who care, who are passionate, who are determined, who are committed. Someone who wake up and say that, okay, I have this platform and I can showcase what's happening in the country. I have the opportunity to do one feature every month because that was what I was doing. I started doing actually, at least every month. I would show one mental health story every month, and there are so many out there. We just need to tell them. And yeah, I should stop talking. I can see Esther is here. We can continue the conversation. Hi, Esther.
Esther, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Esther? Yes, kindly unmute.
Oh yeah, she's muted.
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. We understand. Yeah.
Yeah, the era of technology. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Esther, you can go ahead and introduce yourself as we get into the topic.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Esther Nakazi. I'm a freelance science journalist, and I mainly cover science journalism, and I'm also the head and the founder of the Health Journalists Network, which is made up of a group of journalists that write about health and are passionate about health reporting. And that's what I do.
So basically, we are going to get into our topic of mental health and how journalists have tried to provide awareness of journalism. What do you think journalists are lacking in this coverage, in covering mental health as a topic itself? We shall start with you, Esther.
I think journalists are doing a great job right now during the COVID-19 pandemic to bring out the issues of mental health, especially because right now during the lockdown, there is a lot of mental health issues. So everybody, first of all, the journalists, we are affected. We are anxious. We have all the issues that are happening about mental health. We also have mental health issues. Some have lost jobs, some have income, some have lost. We have all lost loved ones. We have all lost people we know. We see these things unfold in front of our eyes in the communities, and thus we empathize with the communities. So we are writing about these things because they are happening among us. They are happening within the communities that we live in. So we do write about them, and journalists in Uganda are doing a good job right now to put the issues to the fore. I would not want to start with what is lacking. I would like to highlight the fact that they are doing a good job right now to really show people that these things are happening, and mental health issues are an issue that should be talked about. And generally, the conversation has started in terms of what is mental health. In regards to COVID-19, there is a lot of opportunity for us to talk about them, and it's a good thing.
Okay. Florence, can you please respond to the same question?
Oh yes, yeah. I'm in agreement with Esther, and like I'd said, at like 6, 7, 8 years back, I was already reporting about mental health issues, and you could see it was really growing. So like I say, it's the passion. You just need to have someone in a newsroom who cares about health issues, who cares about what's happening in the community around them, who cares about going, for that story whereby someone is being beaten up, suspected of being, a witch or whatever, and looking at it from that time and saying, really, is this it? maybe they are, schizophrenic, or maybe they are this, and you talk to a doctor and you get out all these stories. But yeah, so it's all about passion, and we are slowly getting there. And like Esther says, during these COVID times, obviously, and then yeah, in the US or even in the UK, the racial tensions, all of these things are affecting people. So there are more reports even on Black mental health. Like, you open the website, you look at the different, stations, and people are interviewing, psychologists, Black psychologists, and then, how is the racial inequality affecting everyone? How is the Black movement affecting you? I'm seeing different stories, people talking about how they're depressed, so it's all in the news. So we are really trying our best. But obviously, as journalists, we also need to understand mental health, on a deeper level, even at a personal level, even, how it affects us as well. So yeah,
Yes.
we shall report better.
Okay.
What's lacking as well.
We all understand that mental health is surrounded by so many myths. People think that mental health is probably someone has pushed you, someone maybe those things that someone has pushed me, someone has done this, someone has done this, someone has done this. So us as journalists, what is it that we are doing to ensure that we cut down the spreading of the wrong myths about mental health? I'll start with you, Florence.
Yeah, yeah. You see, that's the thing I was saying. We have to demystify this. We have to debunk the myths. We have to tell people that mental health is. People believe that it's an issue. Like, people struggle with it. Because how would you convince someone that there is a problem when they're like, no, that's cultural. That's something that has always happened. They have normalized it, in the cultural spheres. But how about us as journalists? We come out, we have these big platforms which can reach many people, and just normalize them as medical issues, as issues which deserve attention. Get even the doctors, see people. This, if you get, because sometimes we get, sources who are willing to talk. Obviously, there are ways around sensitivities and hiding their faces if they prefer, or all of that. But you highlight the issues. All we have to do is just keep raising awareness. We have to keep talking and giving people the information, because sometimes when you give someone the information, they make informed choices. They understand. They're like, oh, really? So that's what it comes to. Because someone is always thinking, that's witchcraft. That's what's the word in Uganda of people they find in banana plantations, naked ladies, they call them musezi. She's a night dancer, she's bewitching, Yet someone sometimes actually they even have, Alzheimer's or dementia. Obviously, those they don't want to be classified as mental health issues or stuff like that. But you have to understand, and as a journalist, if you, like I said, if you find such a story, when you see people beating up someone, look at it from all angles, not just, oh, wow, someone was beaten to a pulp, blah, blah, blah. Why is that someone the way they are? Talk to a psychologist, invite different doctors, and have this discussion and say, this person could actually be suffering from this and this and that. And then tell people, this actually is this. And then someone out there will identify and say, actually, I've been going through the same thing. That realization, that's what we want our audiences to see. That's what we should be giving them. So that they don't just think that, oh, I'm being bewitched. Oh, my co-wife hates me. Oh, my sister does this and this, So it's up to us to debunk these myths, because there are lots out there. And when you can't fight culture sometimes, but we have to, because it's supposed to be dynamic. Some of these beliefs, really, we need to leave them in the past. They have to stay in the gutter, period.
Esther, what do you have to say about the myths surrounding mental health?
Like Florence has ably explained, there are so many myths around mental health, and I think our communities, our society here in Africa does not really take it upon themselves to look at the other side of the story, like she rightly explained. Every time somebody maybe has a mental health issue, they think it's witchcraft or something different. And like she explains, I think we
Yeah, I think Esther has some network issues. So now that Walter is here, let him introduce himself
Produce
as we
information that counters
okay, so.
what is being told about mental health that is not true or that is misinforming the public. So, moving forward, I think the myths are there. Our job is to look for the myths and then demystify them, like this is what you think, this is what you think as a community, but it actually isn't that, but it's mental health, and this is how you can overcome it. So first of all, identify the myth, give the correct information, and give people a solution, like this is what can be done about it. So journalists have a lot to play, have a very big role to play in terms of, bringing out the issues and also offering solutions and just helping the public understand that these things happen and they do exist. And there's another, it's not just the African way of looking at it, or thinking it's a myth, or it's witchcraft, or it's that there is a solution to it.
Okay. Walter, you're very much welcome to the program. Kindly, you have so much noise in your background, Walter. You have so much noise.
All right, let me just ask them to.
As Walter sorts out some issues, let's proceed. There is this issue over.
No, he's back. Well, you can hear him at least clearly.
So is it okay? Introduce yourself, and then we'll proceed with what we have reached.
Yeah, so my name is Walter Mwesije, journalist with NTV, and majorly report about health. Been doing this for a number of years, probably 5 or more. And I'm seated in a place that Florence is quite familiar with, and I'm glad to be here.
You're very much welcome, Walter. You found us discussing the myths surrounding mental health. Yeah, like when someone has a mental health issue, people think this person has been bewitched. People think this person has issues, maybe cultural issues, all those things. What do you say about such a thing, you as a health journalist?
First of all, I think we need to educate our people. I don't know how we need to do it, but I think we need to increase the amount of information about mental health that we throw to the public, because you realize when you go out there, people actually don't know a lot about mental health. People think mental health is just
is
when
it me
somebody...
or is water breaking?
And I think people think mental health is, when you meet that person on the road, probably undressed and they're just walking with dirty hair. Most of them think that's mental health. But mental health actually is a lot of things. There is hallucinations, there is, and I was speaking to a doctor not very long ago. He was saying there are forces, that could affect one's life. And that is also part of mental health. Someone has, either positive forces or negative forces, but in most cases, they are negative forces telling this person, you're ugly, you're not going to make it in life, don't go there, or probably you're going to die tomorrow. And, people are dealing with all these voices within their head, but they still present to their offices, they go home, they present to their families. And this is something that is not easily seen. So on that note, we need to have a lot of information out. And about the myths, I think it's generally society. From where we grew up from, I can tell you, for example, for myself, when we grew up, the stories that we used to have or we used to hear about people who are affected mentally would be Oyobamuroga, Ono Simanyi Yabba, something like that, which initially is not the truth. So from back in the day, we were blinded from the facts around mental health.
Okay, thank you so much, Walter, for that. Then I want us to discuss about the way we report stories. We go to newsrooms, we attend these pitch meetings, we pitch, we want to cover a mental health story here and there. So we go to the field, you interview so and so, you come and write a story. Do you think that can take away the fact that mental health is not well covered? Because if you just go to the field, you just interview someone, you just write a story, it's published. How many people do you think read that story? How many people do you think watch NTV? How many people do you think are going to watch the other TV station? How many people do you think are going to listen to our radio station to actually listen to these stories that it impacts on them? Do you think media houses are not doing much to do a sensitization, the education, and all those things in order to have proper reporting on mental health? Esther, let me start with you. Esther, let me start with you. Did you hear the question?
All right, maybe as we wait for Esther, I can just quickly say that I think the media houses are really doing whatever they can, especially first of all having beat reporters majorly about health, to tell these stories, because not everybody will tell the story as somebody who has mastered their beat. But what I think matters to me is the frequency at which or in which we report these stories. I can give you an example of HIV and AIDS, or issues of human rights violations. These are stories that almost appear day in, day out in our news outlets. And if we had, stories about mental health also appearing frequently in our news bulletins, I'm very certain that at least impact would be made in terms of having information out there.
Great. Esther, did you hear what I had asked?
I didn't hear your question very well.
Yeah, I was asking about media houses' involvement in covering mental health issues. I said they send reporters to the field, reporters do the interviews, they come, they report, they air story on NTV, they will write in the papers, in the dailies, they will air this story on radio stations. But how many people do you think listen to this news? How many people do you think read these papers, understand the impact that mental health has on them or the other person that has been interviewed or talked about? Do you think media houses are lacking some bit of reporting, to bring about the mental health aspect?
I think context is everything in terms of when you're reporting something. And right now, like Walter says, there are a few media houses that have health as a bit, and there are few journalists actually who specialize in health as a bit. But if they do and they take it on and they can contextualize it and understand and show the public and put it out like, yeah, this is mental health and it's happening, then it can happen. But like we all work in this area, we know that the resources are not there, they are not available. And sometimes it takes another third party to actually bring these issues to the fore and say, here is a story grant, we want you to go out. So as much as it's an issue that is around us, it's around our communities, and we have some reporters that are devoted to being health reporters really, or science reporters, the issue might not be well explored and contextualized the way we want it to be because of so many things that are happening around us. And that takes a lot of effort, that takes a bit of time, and that takes a lot of forces to play into the area so that we get to the level where we want it to be at, where when somebody goes out to write the story, it's not just like it's a witchcraft story like Florence had explained, but there's another side to it showing that it could be actually a mental health issue. So there are so many factors at play, and right now it's a growing field like any other thing that comes up.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Esther. Florence, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, exactly. They have really explained it so well. And of course, if you're in a newsroom, if you're a journalist, sometimes it even helps us as journalists to get some bit of training or even educate yourself. And there's so many good resources, where you can get all this information. Because if you start explaining it to people, you know exactly what you're talking about. Suicide, by the way, it's on a high, there's an uptick, in suicide cases, especially in low and middle income countries. But still, if someone commits suicide, someone just reports here, someone has killed themselves, or the police has come, someone jumped from Mulago Hospital. But we never investigate what was behind this. We just say, oh, culturally, don't kill yourself. Oh, Jesus says, don't kill yourself. We bring in all these, BS religion, oh, culture. They're going, his body should be whipped. But hey, suicide is a big mental health issue. And we do not, if we cover it as such, people will understand what's going on, what's causing these suicides. Is it poverty? Is it hunger? Is it, relationships? All these things that are tied down to mental health, leading to our young people, especially young people, killing themselves. So we just have to understand and explain everything, and people will get it. Trust me, we are going to get there. Like newsrooms are coming on board, and then when we have these big stars also coming out, admitting that they have mental health issues. Even we had that famous singer Jackie Chandru, what she was going through, it's all tied down to mental health. You show her struggles, what she's going through, how she's overcoming it. Someone out there can identify, and you don't just say, oh, you just crucify and say, her fault. Why is she going through this? What's happening? Is she depressed? And depression is, is the biggest part of, mental health. But some people just, take it lightly. So it's up to us journalists to really go out there and explain, to strive to cover everything that's out there. Of course, some of these issues are really hard to talk about. As a journalist, you also get emotional and professional burnout. But we have to put out these stories. We have to tell them. We shouldn't avoid them. And newsrooms should be open to this issue because it's huge,
Yes. Talking about suicide, recently we are going through a phase where everyone is being affected globally. We have a pandemic. We are having issues. People are getting depressed. People are committing suicide at high rates. And surprising, journalists are reporting so and so has killed themselves. They found themselves hanging in a tree. But like you said, the story behind why why they hung themselves in a tree or inside their houses or wherever is not being told. Yep. So because ideally most media houses like soft stories, where someone is going to say so and so has committed suicide, and then they write a story, and then it's maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs, and then there it is, it's published and it's gone. What do you think should be that? Should the editors come up front to ensure these stories are written the way they should be written? Should the reporters have some training? Should the media houses organize these trainings for journalists? What do you think should be done? I'll start with you, Walter.
Okay, so what I personally think is, I think the channels for reporting right from the community, that's where the emphasis should be put, because you realize that there are many stories that we don't see as journalists or as media houses, very many, and those many stories include stories to do with mental health. And one of the reasons actually is that they're not captured even by the authorities. For example, the police, when the police, like Florence said, is going to pick up a body of someone who has committed suicide, it will just be an ordinary story of somebody has committed suicide, and then there will be speculations, maybe politics, land wrangles, and then the story will die there. But there isn't a thorough background check that is done by the authorities to actually give, what you would say is an accurate report of what happened, like a background of that person. I think if we are able to capture those stories, because currently here in Uganda, in northern Uganda, there is an increase of suicide cases, and the area MPs that side were very much worried. Stories were done, but what came out was that there is no modalities to have these stories captured properly and documented, first of all, by the government pathways. So as journalists, we can only do so much. You can't be in all the 100+ districts in Uganda to look for stories of that nature. But if we had clear statistics of our country, then it would be very easy for us to actually show what the problem is and where it is and where it's coming from.
Let's go to Esther.
I think, like Walter has explained, that can happen. But earlier on, I said context is everything. And let's not say the editors, even if they have a role to play, the individual journalist has a duty to take it upon themselves to learn these things. Most of the journalists we have in this country are not trained for those particular bits. They are not trained to write about health. They're not trained to write about, they're just journalists. And I think that if we leave it to, if we want to throw it to the editor or to the station, then we could lose a point. I think it is us, the journalist. You are the primary responsibility. It is your byline. It is your story. Take time off to go learn these things. Learn what mental health is. Florence has pointed out there are so many resources online. We know that there's all this goodwill. The internet, I mean, is there right now. You can self-teach. So I do not, as much as I want the editors to be at that level where they are helping out the reporters, I have seen lazy journalism in this country, which is unacceptable. And I think that the journalists themselves have a duty to play as the primary first responders, the first people that are going out there and they are getting the story, and they should learn that if I'm writing this story, I should put it in this context, so that the editor is also just making the whole thing better, but they are not, it's not their responsibility to kind of contextualize this thing for you. My take.
Florence.
Someone has said to mow there alone. Sorry, about the noise outside. Yes, that's it. It's up to you. Take the effort. And even apart from even online, there are so many training opportunities. Like if you look still online, you can even go and get a scholarship. To just go and be trained in these issues. Like I used to take advantage of those things. Go cover a conference somewhere on HB. I think they take you through, a training as journalists, areas to cover. You get sources to talk to. They give you, everything. So it has to be your initiative. And like I said, it comes with passion, really. You have to be passionate about health issues to really cover them and give them the depth that they deserve, and just give it straight to the people. So many things that you have to understand. Like obviously, some stories are overwhelming. They are traumatizing, even for journalists, but we have to put them out there. I remember, by the way, I was traumatized by a story I did almost in my first year. It was still a suicide, and I was the one doing the coverage, and I was filming, and it sort of messed me up. It stayed with me every time. And now I can even see that guy looking at me in that trench. So yeah, some stories are really overwhelming, and even for journalists, I covered nodding syndrome stories, and they really, really affected me. But it didn't stop me telling people's stories, because I believe they have to be put there. Someone else has to care. Someone has to see what I have seen, you know. Someone has to see it through their eyes, through my voice, through my text. So we have to have passionate journalists who care, who can convince even the editors, you know, because sometimes I could go and tell my editor, hey, this story is about this and this, it should run. And sometimes I have to beg and say, please, can we have it in the first segment because of this and this and that and that and that, you know, or can I, you know, do a feature out of it? Can I go to this particular part of the country and cover it? Can I, you know, not just see? So it has to be your initiative, really. You have to be caring, and that's how you're going to get, you know, better news sources. Find organizations within the country which are fighting for mental health issues, you know. Find good doctors. Starting point obviously is Butabika. You can't ignore the fact that, you know, most people who have mental health issues go out there. So that's how it should really to be your own initiative as well. But of course, we need more health reporters, science reporters in newsrooms, because you don't just go and sit down and say, okay, I'm starting to report. Just about anyone can just give a report, but if someone is going to give it that profoundness, that person has to really care. That person has to be informed, you know. That's actually pushed me out of the newsroom too, because I was covering all these sexual and reproductive health issues and stuff like that. And people are like, some fun, I won't call them fans, but you go to the field and they ask you, did you study medicine? Did you study this? Did you do this? So I was like, why don't I even just take a master's really in such issues? That's how I ended up, you know, pursuing my master's in population and development, except I never ended up coming back into active journalism. But you see, all these initiatives, that's, you take it upon yourself, really. Personal growth is important.
Okay, talking about journalists having love for what they do. Recently, I actually had issues with someone online. Someone posted something about mental health, about COVID, about the COVID situation, and this person was saying we should mask up to you know, protect ourselves from getting the COVID, you know. But this person put up a picture of someone apparently who was mentally challenged, and this person labeled this person as mad and said, actually he said mentally disabled. He said this person was mentally disabled, you know. So I'm looking at an aspect of us journalists writing stories, and then we have to label these people as mad, as crazy, as mentally disabled. Do you think that should be allowed in a newsroom, or even if not in a newsroom, but outside a newsroom? Do you think that kind of language should be emphasized by anyone who knows what these people are passing through? Walter, I'll start with you since you've been away.
All right, so without doubt, you know, language that really affects the personality of somebody negatively is not welcome anywhere. And, you know, that should be the first thing that a journalist should learn, not because we are health reporters or anything, but you should make it your priority. You can't just go out there and say this person is mad, because that word, according to, you know, its definition, is abusive. So once you use that word, then you're literally abusing somebody. You know, it's as though you're abusing your source, or, you know. So language and the way we use it is key, because, you know, it really tells how much we know about what we are doing, and this cuts across. But I agree with you that that language, you know, people should learn on how to use the correct wordings and the correct language for their stories. This is not something that will come easy, like Florence said. You will have to have, you know, put in some time to understand globally the changes, because some of these changes actually, you know, come as global changes to remove stigma. For example, COVID-19, you realize that it's no longer being called COVID-19 from China or from India. You know, it's been given different names, the Delta strain from India. So once you mention the Delta strain, people who actually know will know that that is from India. If you mention Alpha, people will know that is from UK. So if somebody cannot put in enough time to understand how to use language in their stories, then that is a problem. But learning is a process. I'm sure if a colleague used it, I would be very ready to help them learn that that's not the right way to use it.
Okay, thank you. Florence, you're next.
Yes, of course, language is very important because if you continue using it as a reporter as well, it's like you're giving permission to people to use it. If you're going to call people crazy, even the other people won't understand that there's nothing really crazy or mad about these people. They will just continue saying, "Oh well, she's a reporter. She said it. It's on national television. They're calling them mad, but hey, they're not mad. These are people who are struggling with mental health issues. These are people who are depressed. These are people who want to commit suicide. These are people who are schizophrenic. Explain what is this disease? Does it have a name? Some people, are struggling with illnesses that they don't even know have names, and that's why they think they're just it's all down to witchcraft. But let's give them the names that they have, the names in medical terms, and simplify them and explain and say, if you have this particular disease, this is what it has. These are the symptoms. This is how we are going to break the stigma, because you report about an issue and someone will realize, when they see the symptoms that have been coming, they realize the symptoms much earlier. They see someone like, oh, this person must be having this. Let's take them to this hospital. Let's go see a doctor. Not just saying, oh well, they're crazy, they're headed for crazy. Just wait, they're going to take off their clothes soon. They will be tearing up their hair and stuff like that. So language does matter, and obviously, if you have a platform, you should just educate yourself. It's about really educating yourself, as a person as well. You have to understand these issues. It's very important. You see, language is changing, especially even in the LGBT movement. Some people don't understand some issues, but people are educating themselves along the way, respecting other people's spaces and knowing, okay, so someone is preferring these pronouns. Okay, fine, get on board. Someone is preferring to be called this and this. Like, you lose nothing, and you're helping someone. You're getting rid of that stigma. Stigma is very dangerous, actually, in the mental health movement. Calling men weak, saying, oh, well, if you don't do this, if you admit that you've been mentally, weak. So that perception, we need to change these perceptions and change the language and say, no, actually someone is struggling with this, and they can be helped. They can get help and they can be cured. People want to hear that. People want to know that it's possible to get rid of this problem and not just sit armed up believing that, oh yeah, this is the stereotype that's attached to this. Let's roll out with it. There are so many stereotypes that we have to debunk, break away from them.
Okay. Esther, what do you have to say about that? Esther, are you with us?
I think everything has been well said in terms of stigma and the language used in reporting. It's not only health; it's every other bit that is being done in terms of journalism, and there are do's and don'ts which people learn and people use. So stigma is not something that we should dwell on and propagate or put out there for us who are the ones supposed to create awareness and educate people. And I think everything has been well explained by the two panelists.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to ask something about the wrong reporting. It is possible for someone to be stressed, but not depressed, right? Someone gets stressed, but they are not depressed. But someone cannot get depressed and I don't get stressed, But, sometimes these health writers or health reporters, they might be writing a story of someone who's depressed and then they describe a person as stressed. Or someone is stressed, they describe a person as depressed. Because ideally, if I'm in a state of confusion, I may get stressed, but I may not get depressed because that is something which is short term. It might happen for a short time, and I might just get stressed over something, and the moment I get a solution, I'm back to order. But depression is something that's long time. It might take some time for me to get back to normal. So when it comes to wrong reporting, whose problem do you think it is? Do you think it is the reporter's problem? Do you think the sources did not give the correct information? Do you think the editors did not brief this part very well? What do you think brings about that? We shall start with you, Esther.
I wouldn't want to put, I don't want to play blame games in terms of, not doing things correctly. I would rather we say that we want more education. We want to move this forward. We want this done right. And this I mean, we could blame anybody. We could say that the reporter is not doing a good job, or the editor, or the all that. There are all those blame games. But I think moving forward I think we all should take a responsibility. COVID has offered us an opportunity. This pandemic has offered us an opportunity to understand mental health issues. They are at the fore, they are cross-cutting, they are things that we have a duty to report about right now. And we, as journalists, as people who are educating the public and putting out information, have a duty to learn, differentiate, use the correct language, stick on the beat, and put out as much information as possible. So let's just say we need to move forward and use this opportunity, just like the people who were there when HIV was coming up and it was an epidemic. Right now we have a pandemic, and we can use it because I've never seen mental health issues being debated the way they are debated right now. And journalists can use this opportunity to learn about them, highlight them, and do the correct thing. So if in the, if back then they were not doing the right thing, now there's an opportunity, and that opportunity has presented itself, and we should use that opportunity right now.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thank you so much. Florence, you're next.
Honestly, Esther said it, and I'll just re-emphasize. That's the thing. We have opportunity out here. The racial, the discrimination, the inequalities. They give us all opportunities to report about them and talk about mental health issues. And like I said, you just need an expert. I'm not sure you're going to find an expert who's really going to give the wrong information really about anything. And you've already said, as a journalist, you're very educated yourself about these issues. If you're going to talk about depression, you're speaking about it from an informed point of view. You already have your statistics at hand. You already know what it entails, where the problem is. You already know that most who are depressed end up committing suicide. You already are making all these connections. And when you go to the expert, obviously you have the information. It's not like you're tricking them into, getting to a subject. You don't just go to interview someone about something you've not, educated yourself on. Apart from when it's really totally new and it's just breaking and they've just written this paper and it's coming out. Even then, you still ask questions, you go, you do research, you get another source maybe, to help you out. You don't just take one person's word for it, So if you get it wrong, obviously you can always do a correction, but I don't believe in this time and age for a passionate health journalist or science journalist who is into these issues can just give wrong information to the public. That's already a disservice. I'll call it an injustice, an opportunity lost. You're losing someone out there. And even if you talk about stress, it's also an issue. Why? Tell people you're stressed. This is why you're distressed. How do you avoid it? You do a simple story. You can still also consult the experts and they'll talk about it as well without mixing the issues up. I guess we should just talk for what mental health is, what are the main issues, what are the main illnesses within this spectrum, and explain it to people, and they'll get it. We just need to keep talking about it anyway.
Okay. Walter, you can give a comment on that?
Yeah, well, I won't differ so much from the rest of the speakers. I think, first of all, it's our mandate to find information for the public, and we are required to give, the most correct and accurate and easy to consume information, such that whatever we're trying to communicate is understood better, and replicated in the community the way we think it should be done, or you'd say the way it should be done. So I think that's my comment on that. The rest have really, really elaborated on it.
Okay, thank you so much. Do you think that mental health should be a topic that should be left for only health reporters? Because ideally, I'm looking at a crime reporter. A person who covers crime are probably this person has gone to prisons to cover whatever is happening there. This person covers these people are being jailed, all those things. Maybe a court reporter who has been to court to see these people who are going through all those issues. Maybe a person who covers business, and you have to clash between these business people. Don't you think in those circumstances there are mental health stories that these people are entitled to tell, but they ignore because they are focusing on their specifications, their bits? I'm covering crime, so I'm just only here to see a person who has stolen this one's phone. So I'm covering court, so I'm just here to cover this person and this person. Don't you think these people are ignoring the important part of the story and focusing on something that's not that much important, just because they want to get their bits? I'll start with you, Esther.
Mental health is a cross-cutting issue. It affects all of us as journalists. And if something is affecting you, I think you have a duty to understand it and report about it correctly. So I cannot say that it's only the health reporters that are tasked with reporting about mental health. However, the health reporters or the science reporters are in a better position to contextualize it, to bring it out and write frequently about it, and give it a better flavor, for lack of a better word, than other reporters. But if you're covering any other bit, you are affected. I mean, it will not. It's something that will not jump you and say you're not a reporter for this, so you cannot be affected by mental health issues. And if it affects you, then you have a duty to talk about it and actually report about it. However, if you're reporting about it, maybe you may not be as good as a health reporter, because a health reporter is, let's say, well positioned to give more context, more information, has more sources. But we cannot say, no, this is not your story. It is just for health reporters. It's a cross-cutting issue, and everybody can pick it up and everybody can write about it. We just need to educate more people that even if you're a crime reporter and you're reporting about this issue, you can as well put this issue in context and help the public and educate them better and let them understand that it is also a mental health issue. Over to you.
Walter, you're next.
All right. So for me, what I personally think, and this I was reading from, some people who have practiced journalism for quite a long time, and they were saying, it's not good for a reporter, or it's not a must for a reporter to report about everything and anything. Sometimes you need to stick to your beat because you'll do it better. What I think is, for the sake of not carrying misinformation or adulterated information or missing information in a story, maybe that can be shared across the newsroom, for example, in your meeting, and then posted to the health desk, to be handled by somebody who has been reporting about health. And then you can expect that, every aspect of the story will be covered therein. Some people have no interest in health, in politics, in business, And you won't blame them because they have no interest. You can't force anybody to like economics if they don't really like it, or probably they didn't even study it. So the best thing to do is to find the person, with interest, and then your story will be out the way you want it to be. Yeah.
Florence, do you have something to say?
Sorry, not much apart from just saying, just still re-emphasizing. It's teamwork in the newsroom. If you get a story, Lawrence can do it and it's within your bid, you consult me and I'll tell you, oh, actually, there's this statistic. If you're doing it yourself, don't forget to put this. Or, you should actually add this, make your, beef it up, get this professional. Can I give you the number, So it's teamwork within the newsrooms, and we should all be talking to each other. And that's why we have team meetings when we have come back from the field, or in the morning when we are discussing these things, so that we share and say, oh, you're going to cover this. Can you look at this angle? Or if you go in the field and find this, can I have it on my desk? And sometimes for you to give me some of their stories and say, can you take this on? So I take it on, I beef it up, even if I didn't go to the field to do the filming myself. But then it falls within, my segment. I'll cover it and I'll even do a better job of it, or I'll just direct them on how to do it. So it should be teamwork within the newsrooms. We should have these meetings when you're going to the field, when you're back from the field, and you discuss, and someone will give you, better insight into, writing a better script and beefing it up and, giving people information that they deserve, not just, yeah.
And then talking about the stories that they deserve, there are some journalists or maybe media houses that focus on breaking stories alone. Like for you, your purpose just said, for example, if a patient in Butabika has committed suicide because they were depressed or because of a certain issue what we may not know. For you, when you go to Butabika, you're only focusing on that breaking story, on that person has committed the suicide and everything and whatever it is. Maybe it's a depression and all that kind of stuff. But if I don't know if all of you have been to Butabika. When you go to Butabika, when you get into the hospital, there is quite a lot that you could see in those surroundings. Quite a lot of things happening. But we majorly think, for example, when you go to the drug section where these people who do the drugs are put, you may not easily understand those people are going through the same situation that maybe the women in the convulsive ward are going through, So us as journalists, if they say, Claire, go to Butabika, probably are going to cover this certain breaking story about depression. Do you think it would be wise for me to look around for these other touching stories that I can write about? Maybe probably there are features, or maybe there are also soft news stories in there. Or do you think it would be good for me as a journalist to improve my reporting stories, or my reporting? Am I reporting conscious, or I should just focus on whatever has taken me, then I should ignore all these other things? I'll start with you, Flores.
Of course, you can't ignore, like as a journalist, you have to look for angles. Sometimes I go to the field and it guides me, I'm going to cover something else, but I see something else deserves attention, I'll go for it. Or I'll just write it down and say, I'll come back for it. That's why when one time I went to Butabika, I covered a very light story whereby they do drama. I even joined in when they were dancing. We practically danced together, showing this other side of how they are giving patients care, not just looking at, the gloom and, sort of everything like that, seeing how they are receiving their medicines, how they come, how is the day of a person who's, who is grappling with mental health issues going, what do they do? What activities do they get up to? The care workers, what are they doing? Do they also get burned out, and are they also helped? So you look at all angles, not just one thing. And like I say, it takes really passion, it takes understanding, it takes being invested in it. And when you're a journalist, you're looking for angles, hundreds of angles. Like I said, I began serializing mental health issues for Health Focus. I decided, okay, every month, at least one mental health issue. And that's how you get, different stories. You don't just go just for one and that's it. No, it's a process. It's a circle. There are so many stories to tell out there. If you're open to them and see them, not just be unidirectional.
Walter, please give your comments.
All right, so what I think is we have to be open, first of all, as journalists, we have to be open-minded and cool-headed to allow for adjustment, learning, and, relearning things that we know and those that we don't know. Because what you may think today is a problem, it may shift and, tomorrow manifests as another challenge, but of a similar origin. So being open-minded leaves you with enough space, enough room to always find all these story ideas that may be left out if we don't give them enough attention.
Esther.
I think the issue has been well explained by my two panelists. We just need to be open-minded and we need to look out for different angles and do a thorough job.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Then there is this issue of journalists tending to have one source for every particular story. For example, if my source in Butabika is Dr. Basangwa, yes, I know he retired, is no longer there, but if he's my source, there are these journalists where every time they want to cover something about mental health, they will always quote Dr. Basangwa, this and this. Dr. Basangwa, you find each of their stories contains just that one source in their stories. What do you say about that? I mean, aren't we supposed to be versatile? If we have sources, aren't we supposed to pick from here, from there, because there are different departments in Utabika. We cannot only have one person for every story. Yes, you might have the knowledge, might be the ED, but then aren't we supposed to be looking at all these different aspects for this and this and this and this, or maybe getting sources from these other different regional hospitals probably to talk about the same issues that this person would have talked about? What this? I'll start with you, Walter.
So, well, single sourcing is never, a good thing for any journalist's story anywhere, but sometimes it depends really on the circumstances under which that story has been run. If it's a feature story, then there is no excuse for having one source in the story.
No, Walter, my question is, every time you write a mental health story, you actually have that repeated person in the same story.
Yeah, well, that is not good because it tends to circulate knowledge around that one source, that's not a good idea because science evolves and it changes each and every day. A scientist that was, produced in the class of, for example, 90s or in the 2000s may not be the scientist that was produced last year. There is, changes in, for example, things that happen around us and the way they understand or the way they respond to illnesses or, epidemiology studies that are being done each and every day. So if we are going to use only one source, then it will limit our understanding and our knowledge to the knowledge of that one source, which is not very good.
Esther, give your comments on that.
I think that household names, I call them household names because you'll find 20 stories and sometimes, we play out roles of being a mentor for journalists. So you're looking at this and you're doing an analysis and you're finding this one household name that everybody focuses on. And sometimes it's an issue of this one person who loves talking to the press because their character is such. They are available, even if they're not available, they're the ones that the press love and they will get back to them. And so they become a household name. And you can default the journalists and say it's not a good practice, but sometimes they are caught up and it's running, you're running with a story. You don't have time. It's of course not a good practice. We would not encourage it. Would love to have other people in that specialty. If it is mental health, you cannot focus on only one person as if the whole Uganda trained one person to talk about mental health. But then the reality of the game of journalism is that you are running with a story that has to be produced at a certain time, and probably this is the one person who will give you a comment at that point in time. We can all do better, look for other sources. We have reviewed documentation where you actually have more men talking, you do not have women, as if in this class of specialists of oncologists, there are no women in Uganda who did oncology. Yeah. So every time they are quoting. So it should be a deliberate effort by the media house, by the reporters themselves to seek out other sources so that they give us diversity, because diversity makes everything. And unless we promote it as media trainers, as people who have been in the field for a long time, then it will go on like that. It can be explained, the excuse can be given, but you can also give them an alternative and say, no, we want diversity. We want to hear more voices from that specialty. We do not want you to have this household name. Over to you.
Florence.
So sometimes I really don't mind household names. Like Esther said, they're easier, they are there for you. You just call and they'll give you a comment. Obviously, I'm not going to ask someone about HIV when there are specialties in, I don't know, some other, disease. But if they're there and they have the information, I'm going to use them. And I look at these channels out here, they sometimes have resident doctors, So you could establish a kind of segment, a show whereby you have that resident doctor. And sometimes that resident doctor will lead you to other experts as well. So, it's just, anyway, in the end, it's up to you as a journalist to search for these people. But then again, if we can also talk to these organizations, someone organize, media, this charity organizations or hospitals, they have communications teams within their hospitals, and they teach them how to talk to journalists, how to be open, how to give out information, because some of them, you can't fault them. They fear facing cameras. They do not have strong communications teams within their, organizations. So they won't talk to you even if they have the information. And sometimes, I was working on TV, but someone just says, off camera, Florence. I'm like, how am I going to do this story, So that's how I end up calling the other doctor. And then this one has given me the off camera. I'll maybe just do a quote, do graphics over it, Maybe it's much easier for print guys, but if you're a broadcast person, that's where the challenge even comes in, People fear facing TV, and this training, we should be meeting these experts, talking to them as journalists, and then them talking to us and airing out our issues. It's very important. Trainings on both sides. But yeah, I don't mind single source. As long as someone is informed, period.
Okay, thank you so much, my three guests for today. As we are winding up, I'm going to give each one of you a few minutes to give their final remarks as regards to mental health coverage. So let me start with Walter.
All right, so finally we break the trend for ladies first, and
yes.
gentlemen can go first. But that said, I think it's an important conversation to keep up with about mental health. It's one of the less reported areas or fields in health, I can tell you, because I personally, I feel guilty that I don't tell a lot of those stories. Yet maybe I have the opportunity to do so. I'll try to improve on that. And also, to gather us here as people who have had the knowledge in the field is also very important, to keep sharing what we know and, to improve ourselves, because we learn from each other. Learning never stops. I learned from Florence, was a rookie when I just came in. Sometimes it's not the easy way, but nonetheless, we strive to be better people. Yeah. And thanks for the opportunity to have us here all together for about an hour plus. Thank you.
Esther, give your final remarks.
Yes, I can hear you. I think just right about now, mental health issues are at the fore, like I said. It's a pandemic, and we have had so many people talking about mental health during this pandemic. It thus gives us a precedent, or it gives us an opportunity. Anybody who is writing health, anybody who is writing science, you have an opportunity at this point in time to learn about mental health, cover it, understand it, and go on covering it, because there is an opportunity, and once you don't use the opportunity, then I don't know what to say. So my final words is just use the opportunity. The WHO is putting out a lot of information about mental health right now. There are so many organizations that are putting out information about mental health. And if you care about it, and if you want to be a good reporter, then you can just understand it and incorporate it in your writing and do a good job. Over to you.
Thank you, Florence.
Yeah, exactly. We have the thing of, you just put something, the news cycle ends. It shouldn't just end, You have to keep yourself informed. And of course, as a journalist, health science journalist, if you're new to journalism, of course, like I said, these are uncomfortable topics. They can be emotional. You can get professional burnout. So if you're new to journalism, you may not start off working with very difficult stories right away. Try understanding them, educate yourself, be informed, understand what are the issues, We don't also want you to be overwhelmed. Like I said, I was traumatized by the first story that I covered, suicide, and it stayed with me. I practically see that guy sometimes all the time. And newsrooms should also care about, journalists' mental health. We cover a little difficult stories. You cover someone's, poverty, all these things. We should all be recognizing that there is an issue, and it can start from within the newsrooms, and we have to discuss this even within the newsroom itself, within meetings. Like I say, I've covered nodding syndrome stories, and they've just messed me up, and I'm like, wow, can anything be done? Like, no one even cares even about reporters, what they're going through, our own health. So yes, we should all recognize that we have a problem. It's a growing problem, but we can talk about it. We can end the stigma. We can get tired, fine, but we need to keep up. We need journalists who care, really. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Florence, Esther, and Walter, for honoring today's invitation to grace today's show. It's been an honor having you on set, and we thank to Nacheki TV for streaming live our event, and to everyone who has watched us from wherever in the world you're watching us from. We thank you so much. I see from the comments, I see Trinidad and Tobago, I see Kenya, I see Germany, I see Canada, I see South Africa, Uganda, everyone. I cannot mention all of you, but we thank you so much for tuning in today, for watching this good program. And I hope to see you next time. Probably next week, we are going to have another show coming up. So stay tuned. To my guests, have a good night. Good morning, good evening.
Good morning here.